Hello, humans. We are back for more Final Fantasy TCG deck profiles. If you've already noticed something different, it is my playmat. I still have the War Greymon underneath, but this is my playmat for my Marincess. That's because today's deck profile is Water and Monsters. Yes, my Final Fantasy TCG is Water and Monsters today. And the stars of this show are Realm, and Ultros. Kind of fortunate, but at the same time, maybe not so. Ultros is a forward. It's not considered a monster, which did trip me up at first, but at the same time, I'm not really mad at it. Because of the way it functions in the deck, it fits as a forward more than it does as a monster. But that's more of what it does in general. Moving on to the number of cards. 3 cards of the 4-cost EX Realm. Oh wait, almost actually forgot. Deck box. Slide the camera up a little bit. Yes, the deck box for Water. Now, 3 copies of the 4-cost EX Realm. Now, Saji right here. I got way too many copies of her. The 5-cost Realm. This one is the 2-cost EX Realm. Three copies of the 1-cost Ultros. 3 copies of the 2-cost Ultros. 3 copies of the other 2-cost Ultros, except this one is from Theater Rhythm. And 3 copies of the 5-cost Ultros. Moving on to the backups. I have 1 copy of Flintlock from Tactics A2, the Moogle Flintlock. 2 copies of Scholar from 3, the Refia. I have 3 copies of Fisher. This is the one from 14. I have 3 copies of Geomancer. Final Fantasy Tactics. And an important backup is 2 copies of Strago. This is where things get rather interesting. Monsters. And there's a lot of them. Giosgano. I'm probably butchering the name. I never really looked up how to properly pronounce it. Giosgano. Yeah, I got 3 copies of him or it. 2 copies of a one coster Tunberry. There's a lot of Tunberries. Then there's also Ton Betty. There's multiple variants of her. But there's 2 copies of the one coster Tunberry from Theater Rhythm. There's 2 copies of the one coster Oil Boil. There's 2 copies of the Adamantoise from Theater Rhythm. 3 copies of Schrodinger. This one is 13. Yeah, there's a bunch of actual main games I need to go back and play. 13 is one of, and 13 too. And 3 copies of Octomammoth from 4. And last but not least, I actually have summons in here. 3 copies of a one coster EX Poo Poo. I'm pretty sure that's probably how you pronounce its name. Poo Poo. Papa. Yeah, there's no way I can say this without it just being weird. Moving on to what all they actually. Before I go into details on what all they can do, this deck has the most cards as like the side deck options. Also, as you can see, this one in the front, one of the biggest reasons why sleeves are important is, let's say if a window's open and it's raining, the room can and will get damp, which can do some water damage to cards. Also, a drop of water can still damage the cards, so yeah, keep your cards in sleeves preferably, especially when playing in public. But when keeping them at home, yeah, take care of your cards, because water, yeah, it legit does damage to your cards. Even a small droplet of water can still warp it. Either way, side deck options, as in, these are other options that can go in the deck. 3 copies of the 3 coster realm. 2 copies of the 2 coster realm. She's an EX, and she's a really, really good card for what she does. But she not in it right now. There's 3 copies of the 3 coster Strago EX. There's 3 copies of the 5 coster Strago. He's good, but I'll take him out. Now, if it wasn't the Ultras, it'd be Marlboros. There's 3 copies of the Marlboro from Theater Rhythm. There's 3 copies of the Marlboro from Crystal Hunt. There's 3 copies of Cleon. I'll explain what these do later. There's 3 copies of Blue Rim. And I just need to hold my hand down. 3 copies of the X-Ray. There's 2 copies of the Sahagan Chief. I don't know if it's Sahagan or Sahagan. I'm not sure how to properly pronounce them. There's 3 copies of the Sahagan. Sahagan. I honestly don't know. There's 3 copies of the Sprite from Tactics Advance. 3 copies of Whale Zombie off to the side. The other copy of Tonberry. The other Adamantoise, Oil Boil, the 2 other Flintlocks, and that other Strago. These are all copies that I have on the side that could go in the deck when I was experimenting with it before I found a solid build. Yeah, this has the most options, and that's for now. That doesn't include the future. Reading off to what these cards do. The forwards. Starting with the 4 coster EX Realm. EX Burst. When Realm enters the field, choose one forward without the multi symbol. Other than Realm, you may search for one character with the same name and add it to your hand. So that symbol is right here at the top right corner of the card, like on Tonberry. A card wouldn't without that. A character without that. This is where the Ultras come in. Because I can choose any one character. And yeah, I can choose the Ultras. But it has to be other than Realm. The only other option would be Strago, but I don't really care too much about that one. Yeah, so Realm, those copies of Strago and the Ultras are the only ones that I have without that. I get an Ultras on the field. That Realm touches board. I can search for any other Ultras, but I will get to what he does pretty soon. I need to go through the other realms first. This realm, the 5-coster. When Realm enters the field, you may search for up to one monster of cost 1 and up to one monster of cost 2 and play them onto the field. Just entering the field, I can play 2 monsters straight from the deck. At the end of each of your turns, choose one forward opponent controls. If you control 5 or more monsters, return it to its owner's hand. That 5-cost Realm is worth it. She only has 4,000 power, but she is worth it because as soon as she touches board, I get 2 free monsters straight from the deck. And I can return something to your hand. Oh yeah. Let's keep going. The 2-coster EX Realm. When Realm, this is an EX burst. When Realm enters the field, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Add one monster among them to your hand and return the others to the bottom of your deck in any order. Though this card, choose one monster until the end of the turn, it also becomes a forward with 7,000 power. Yeah, any one of my monsters can become a forward. Those are the 3 Realm cards that I have in. I'm going to go over the Ultras, but I have 2 copies of the backup Strago because he's important. Pay 1 water crystal point and though this card. Put Strago into the break zone. Choose one card, name Realm of cost 2 or less in your break zone. Play it onto the field. You can only use this ability during your turn. He is that important backup to get this Realm back onto the field should she go off. Now, the reason why that Strago is important is in the side deck, this is still a 2-cost Realm. When Realm enters the field, choose one monster, return it to its owner's hand. That's the other option. But that second one is in the side deck. She was in the main deck for a while. Returning to the forwards. Oh. We are entering Tentacle Monster territory with Ultras. When Ultras enters the field from the deck, choose one forward. Put it at the bottom of its owner's deck. Pay 2 water crystal points. Put Ultras at the bottom of its owner's deck. If you do so, shuffle your deck. Then reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Play one card named Ultras among them onto the field and return the others to the bottom of your deck in any order. You can only use this ability once per turn. So you can literally gamble with this. Gamble for any Ultras, which I have 3, 6, 9, 12. I have 12 forwards named Ultras. Moving on to the 2-coster Ultras from 13. When Ultras is put from the field into the break zone, you may remove Ultras from the game. If you do so, put the top 5 cards of your deck into the break zone. Then select one card named Ultras in your break zone and play it onto the field. The 2-coster Ultras from Theater Rhythm. When Ultras is put from the field to the break zone, you may pay 1 water crystal point. When you do so, search for one card named Ultras and add it to your hand. Though this card put Ultras in the break zone, choose one forward, it loses 5,000 power until the end of the turn. The 5-coster Ultras. When Ultras attacks, deal 2,000 damage and 1,000 more damage for each card named Ultras in your break zone to all forwards opponents controls. When Ultras is put from the field into the break zone, you may pay 2 water crystal points. When you do so, search for one card named Ultras and play it onto the field dull. That's the best way to get this one out onto the field. But instead of doing that, you can just put another one of these straight from the deck. Yeah, you got rid of one, a 9,000 beat stick. But there's literally 3 in the deck. So I can do 2,000 plus 1,000 more for each one in the break zone. That's the reason why Ultras is the second main character in this deck. Because he's water and he's a monster. Except he's also treated, except in this one, he's a forward. That's why I don't mind him being a forward. Going on to the backups. Geomancer. Though this card, look at the top card of your deck, you may place the card at the top you may place this card at the bottom of your deck. That really comes in handy in case, oh, I really do not need this card right now. Let me just go ahead and slide you at the bottom. Fisher. Pay 2 water crystal points and 1 crystal point of any element. Though this card, put Fisher into the break zone. Choose one monster of cost 3 or less in your break zone, play it onto the field. You can only use this ability during your turn. Fisher, this is the reason why I have 3 copies of this in here. I can bring back my monsters. There's the 2 copies of Scholar. Though this card, put Scholar into the break zone, choose one forward you control, return it to its owner's hand. Yes. Keywords. One forward I control. Hey, you remember that EX burst that you found threatening, that you didn't want to deal with anymore? Yeah, let me go ahead and return this to the hand and play it right back onto the field. And then that 1 copy of Flintlock. Though this card, choose one forward, it doesn't receive damage that is less than its power this turn. Meaning I can't really receive chip damage. But I only have 1 copy because I don't need the other 2. Most people who swing are going to swing for the kill. But that 1 copy comes in handy because Yeah, you want to pile up damage on me? Yeah, let me go ahead and nope that right out of existence. Now, let's go on to the monsters. Starting with the 3 copies of Schrodinger. When Schrodinger enters the field, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a forward, draw 1 card. You end up drawing that 1 card. That forward. If it is a backup, select 1 character in your break zone and add it to your hand. If it is a monster, your opponent selects 1 forward he or she controls, return it to its owner's hand. If it is a summon, draw 2 cards. This Schrodinger is the biggest, well, one of the biggest reasons why I still have a summon in here. Yeah, I have one of everything. Schrodinger is going to affect something. Oh, fun thing about Schrodinger is you compare it with Geomancer. Geomancer, look at the top card of my deck. Do I really want Schrodinger to use this? Now sliding to the bottom, let's gamble with the next one. 2 copies of Adamantoise. Put Adamantoise into the break zone, choose 1 forward. During this turn, the next damage dealt to it is reduced by 3,000 instead. Draw 1 card. The 2 copies of Oil Boil. When Oil Boil enters the field, draw 1 card, then discard 1 card from your hand. Once you receive 3 points of damage, Oil Boil also becomes a forward with 7,000 power. The 3 copies of Octomammoth. If you control 3 or more water backups, Octomammoth also becomes a forward with 8,000 power. When Octomammoth enters the field, choose up to 2 forwards opponent controls, return them to their owner's hands. This is another card without the multi-character symbol. Octomammoth, you put in work. You put in work. The 2 copies of Tonberry. When a character opponent controls searches for 1 or more cards, put Tonberry into the break zone. If you do so, break that character. Part of me wants to put the 3rd one in there, but I don't always go against the decks that search. If you want to, go ahead and put that 3rd one in. Put that 3rd one in. I ain't stopping you. Geos Gano, the 3 copies of it. When a forward opponent controls returns to its owner's hand from the field, Geos Gano also becomes a forward with 7,000 power. And if Geos Gano receives damage, the damage is reduced by 1,000 instead. This effect does not end at the end of the turn. This ability will not trigger if Geos Gano is a forward. So a 2-coster at 7,000 power, you need 8,000. You need to swing on it with 8,000 in 1 hit just to take it out. If you try to pile on damage, it will all get reduced by 1,000. So trying to do multiple instances of damage will just delay how much you have to do. And last but not least are the 3 summons. Poo Poo, 1 cost, an EX burst. Discard 1 card, then draw 2 cards. I swear that name just throws me all the way off. Now to go into details about the cards that I have on the side. The 3 copies of Realm. When Realm enters the field, choose 1 forward or monster you control. You may return it to its owner's hand. When you do so, gain Crystal Point. I still haven't found anything solid on that. Pay 1 special Crystal Point, though this card search for 1 monster of cost 2 or less and play it onto the field. That's great, but it's usually her when entering effect. Pay 2 special crystal points. Search for one monster of cost 5 or less and play it onto the field. This 2-cost realm, the EX, when realm enters the field, choose one monster, return it to its owner's hand. Three-cost Strago, EX Burst. When Strago enters the field, choose one forward or monster opponent controls. If you control a category 4 forward other than Strago, return it to its owner's hand. Grand Delta. Drop a copy of this, pay 2 water crystal points, and double this card. Divide 12,000 damage equally among all the forwards opponent controls. Round up to the nearest 1,000. This Strago is actually good. He is really good. But at the same time, it's an iffy. You can if you don't want to use the Ultrasses, you can always put him in. Swap those out for him. This 5-cost Strago. When Strago enters the field, choose one forward opponent controls, return it to its owner's hand. Then you may play one character of the same cost as it from your hand onto the field. It is a great card, but for 5 cost and 7,000 power, it's only great in the situation that you have a card, a character, with the same cost as something on their field. Even without it, you can still get rid of a problem. The 3 Marlboros on the side. Pay 1 water crystal point until the end of the turn. Marlboro also becomes a forward with 6,000 power, and when Marlboro blocks or is blocked, all the forwards opponent controls lose 2,000 power until the end of the turn. This is great if you have all 3 on the field. If you can get all 3 on the field, you can do this on your opponent's turn and just drain their whole board. The other 3 copies of the other Marlboro. During your turn, Marlboro also becomes a forward with 6,000 power. When Marlboro is blocked, all the forwards opponent controls lose 2,000 power to the end of the turn. Like I said, if it wasn't Ultras, it'd be Marlboros. The 3 copies of Cleon. This one is situational. When either player casts a summon, put Cleon into the break zone. If you do so, cancel the summon's effect. When Cleon is put from the field to the break zone, draw 1 card. Your opponent is not guaranteed to play summons. So if you actually decide to put some cards on the side, this is one of the recommended ones. If your opponent plays a bunch of summons, you can slide these in, screw them over, and draw a card. Yeah. Blue Rim. When Blue Rim enters the field, draw 1 card. For 0 crystal point cost until the end of the turn, Blue Rim also becomes a forward with 6,000 power. At the end of the turn, break Blue Rim. It's a 0 coster, 6,000. So when it enters the field, you get to draw a card. And for free, you can make it a forward, but it will die at the end of that turn. It's high risk, high reward, and I'd rather keep a monster that stays on the field. That's why I put it onto the side. But it is a good emergency contingency plan. Yeah, it's my opponent's turn and I have nothing else to protect myself. Yeah, let me go ahead and put this on the field. It's going to die anyways. Dark but effective. The 3 copies of X-Ray. Put X-Ray into the break zone, draw 2 cards. That alone is already good. At 5 damage, you can draw 3 cards. The Sahagin Chief. When a water character other than Sahagin Chief enters your field, place 1 monster counter on it. With 1 counter, you put this in the break zone. With one counter, return one forward you control to its owner's hand. With 3 counters, I can choose up to 2 forwards. And they don't have to be my own. Then the other 3 copies of the Sahagan for 0 cost. Until the end of the turn, it becomes a forward with 6,000 power. And when Sahagan attacks, draw 1 card, then discard 1 from your hand. It stays on the board, but I draw A and drop 1. So it's okay, but only if I have a card that I want to get rid of in my hand. The sprites. During your turn, sprite also becomes a forward with 7,000 power. That's actually pretty decent, because there's a lot of monsters where only on my turn they become forwards. The problem is I can't block with them on my opponent's turn. For 1 crystal point, discard sprite, remove 1 backup from the game, choose 1 forward or monster, return it to its opponent or to its owner's hand. It's a good card, but I have to remove a backup from the game in order to use its in-hand effect. Whale Zombie. When Whale Zombie enters the field, draw 1 card. Put Whale Zombie into the break zone. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Return these to either the top or bottom in any order. It's good, but it ends up going into the break zone. Then there's the other copy. Then there's the Tonberry, Adamantoise, Oil Boy, Flintlocks, and that 3rd Strago. So the water deck in and of itself is still good. And with this many cards, as side deck options, once again, this is the one deck with the most cards on the side. With this deck, you can literally drown your opponent. Not only drown them, but you can also send like 12 different tentacle monsters at them.